own Peter Doocy confronting Jen Psaki over a White House statement that praised the Taliban for being, quote, businesslike and professional for allowing an evacuation flight out of Kabul. And Peter had the receipts.
You're saying the Taliban is businesslike and professional. Their interior minister has an FBI wanted poster. He's got a $10 million bounty on his head. What's the business?
We are here to celebrate the return of American citizens who wanted to leave Afghanistan, of legal permanent residents, of Afghans who fought by our side, to Qatar successfully on a Qatari Airlines flight. And in order to get those people out, we had to work with some members of the Taliban to press them and to work in a business-like manner to get them out.
Harris, the audacity of calling the Taliban businesslike and professional when we know, we've heard multiple American accounts that the Taliban has put guns to the heads of our peers, our fellow Americans, but they're businesslike and professional.
Well, look, we know who they are. That's why we fought them. That's why we were there for 20 years. Like, we knew what it was like. That's really the audacity and where it begins. Why did we leave the way we did, knowing who they really are? And now the world gets to watch all of us being represented by a government that's willing to bend down and kiss the boot of the enemy to try to save a few of us who were there, who they never should have left behind in the first place. I mean, we lost all of our leverage. But with this, I'm starting to wonder, because there is a wider audience. Was there some kind of promise made to the Taliban that we would help legitimize them on a world stage if they did like a little buck deal with us? Like, I'll give you a buck if you give us 5 people, or whatever that was like? Because that's also a bad idea. Performative art in this type of an environment with terrorists is never a good idea. It then just informs other enemies of what they can get us to do in the future. We do have the ability to go in, to put boots there. I don't want to say boots on the ground because people think you mean going to war. We've got commando, we've got special forces. We can go in there, we can get our people out and leave.
Yeah.
Right? We can actually make his lie a fact by saying we did not leave anybody behind. I just don't know if this administration has the intestinal fortitude to let the military go do its job.
Yeah, I'd love to see that lie become a fact and not have stranded Americans. But the reality is, Emily, there were Americans held hostage for nearly a week, not allowed to take off from those planes. The Taliban is the one who greenlighted them. We are relying on the Taliban, and how amazing is that? And then when they did greenlight them, they said, oh, you've got to travel 8 hours. And we now know that 30 Americans got on that flight. There were more than that should have taken off. But all of that, and the audacity of the White House to put out this statement, we're going to pop it up on the screen. This is on the White House's website from an NSC spokesperson. It read in part, the Taliban have been cooperative in facilitating the departure of American citizens and lawful permanent residents on charter flights from HKIA. They have shown flexibility, Emily, and they have been businesslike and professional in our dealings with them in this effort. This is a positive first step, positive that Americans were held hostage and the Taliban dictated the terms.
This is absolutely reprehensible. I am ashamed at this being our commander-in-chief, and this is the stuff coming out of his mouth. These are the things being blessed by his White House spokesperson. Are you joking me? That footage of the journalist's injuries, that was nauseating. I had to look away, and then I made myself look back. I should not look away at the harm being inflicted on the press. And let's remember what President Biden, or what then candidate Biden said about what he called President Trump's attack on the media. Remember, he called it corrosive and dangerous. Remember that he said the freedom of the press is one of the most important liberties in the world, and to attack it there's nothing more dangerous. I'm paraphrasing that part, but he used the word dangerous. And the whole point is, here we are seeing journalists who are trying to report on women in the streets being whipped with rubber hoses while we watch. And they were tortured. They were held in captivity. Those injuries are horrific. And then we have a spokesperson who says they are businesslike. Yeah. It is absolutely unacceptable. I won't stand for it. And them talking about COVID, trying to shift the topic, won't work with me, and it won't work with us here.
Yeah, and Morgan, on a day when the White House berated unvaccinated people, saying that they will pay the price, the Taliban was praised. But not only that, I'm sure you caught this, Morgan. There was a phone call with China where we were told that it was respectful. China and the Taliban are treated differently than Americans.
Yeah, those readouts are always hard to write, Kaylee, as you remember, after the president or the Secretary of State has a call with the foreign leader. And that one was about as vague as one could possibly be, and also very markedly different from what the Chinese released, I would add. But listen, when you look at, Harris made the point brilliant earlier, when you look at what leverage we have no leverage. We have no military leverage, right, with the Taliban right now. We're not there. We can't, sort of put a gun to the head of the Taliban, right? We have no leverage but economic leverage. And the questions that Harris laid out at the beginning of the segment is what Congress should be asking Secretary Blinken under oath. Next week, he's supposed to testify in front of SFRC, I believe. And exactly what Harris laid out are the questions that should be asked to Secretary Blinken under oath. We know that there are still no announced asylum agreements, right? For example, from these refugees. We don't know where they're going off of U.S. military bases. And so I would just say that, listen, there are so many unanswered questions in this. We need to get to the bottom of it under oath next week, and multiple officials should be deposed.
Right, absolutely. And Ari, the White House, though, they think they have leverage. Here's what they say their leverage is: United Nations statements condemning the Taliban and access to the global marketplace. We know the Taliban relies on criminal enterprises. You think that's the leverage that's going to go a long way with the Taliban?
Yeah, there are two words that sum up what the administration has, and it's called Stockholm Syndrome. Stockholm Syndrome is when you're kidnapped, you're taken hostage, and you develop a fondness for your kidnapper. You realize how impotent you are. You have to acquiesce to everything you're told to do. And so therefore you're 100% dependent on the people who just took you hostage. And that's the Biden administration's approach to the Taliban. They suffer from Stockholm Syndrome instead of having leadership and strength. Stockholm Syndrome.
That is the best I've heard it put. Stockholm Syndrome and the Biden White House, no doubt about it.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.